had started off as research for a short form video to fill in a niche in our 22 rifle timeline. And it turned into an epic saga of patent research into the greatest minds of firearm design. It concluded with the repair of a rifle thought to have been ready for retirement. Check it out. Milsurp Garage. Got with us today the Remington Model 121 Fieldmaster. This is a 22 rimfire, pump action rifle, tubular magazine. And this design started with the Remington Model 12 way back in 1909. John Pedersen design. We're going to get into some serious Remington designers here. We're going to have John Browning involved in here, C.C. Loomis, and of course the great John Pedersen of the Pedersen device, the Pedersen rifle, the Remington Model 34. Check out my video on the Remington Model 34. That was a C.C. Loomis. That was like the pinnacle of his career right there. That 22 that loads with that unique lifter that loads the 22 shells like a battleship loads the big huge gun shells. Wild. So the Remington Model 12 produced from 1909 to 1936. We got an old video up on that. Really should refresh the video. This is the Model 12. This is a 1917. This is 1917 vintage. This is the Model 12C with this octagon barrel. This is a real oldie right here. This thing is gorgeous. I love this gun. And the Model 12, this unique butt plate. The Model 12C. These lasted from 09 to 36. They made over 800,000 of those things, right? Now, in 1936, Remington did something interesting. They revised their entire model line. So the Model 14, which was another Pedersen design that was basically this design, but incorporated into a centerfire rifle. Got a video up on that too. Check it out. But the Model 14 became the 141. The Model 8, the John Browning design, the long recoil semi-automatic rifle that he designed. The Model 8, Remington Model 8, became the 81. The John Browning designed Model 24 became the 241. So, of course, the Pedersen design Model 12 became the 121. Now, when Pedersen first designed the Model 12 back in 1909, before it came out, it went through a few revisions by these two designers that worked for Remington, C.C. Loomis and this other guy, Garrison. Don't really know much about this guy, but he supposedly, way back in 1909, helped out to make some revisions to get the original released. So when this 121 in 1936, they did the revisions Remington did were basically, I guess the Depression hit everybody hard, and Remington was looking to kind of revise their manufacturing process, like figuring out like what are some of the things we could do to make some improvements. It wasn't all just cost-saving features, but it was making improvements while also easing the manufacturing process some. And there are some differences, between these two. You see some differences in what they did. They kept the basic design the same, but you'd see little things like when you poke around and you notice the there's two rings here that locate the magazine, and they're dovetailed in to the barrel. And after the revision, there's only one of these rings, and it's screwed into the barrel. So you see, it's just little things like that you notice. And but his original design still carried through. Like, one of the unique things about Pedersen's design with this magazine tube is that when you cycle the action, the magazine tube travels with the whole action, the whole handguard. And I thought that was really interesting. And things like that they kept in. So the actual, the design they kept the same. Other things they kept intact were the takedown. These are takedown rifles, just this one screw. You were able to separate the two pieces. That was pretty cool. And these were extremely popular. And the switch over to the 121 happened in 1936. And they lasted from 1936 to 1954. Now, they only made about 200,000 of those. So these would be interesting. Usually older ones like that are the ones that are the rarer ones, and then later on production increased. This kind of worked in the other direction. They only made about 200,000 of these, mostly because from 36 to 54, a lot of those years were war years. Remington was making Enfield rifles, you know what I mean, during the war. So production on these was kind of limited. Plus, they kind of were already, in a way, falling out of favor. They weren't as popular. Everyone was kind of going bolt action crazy. This whole pump thing was kind of looked at as old already by then. You know what I mean? And plus, not only did Remington make these revisions, but the price also went up. So people were reluctant to spend money on an old design like that when there were newer, more modern offerings out there for that price. You know what I mean? So patent-wise, it's really interesting to follow these things, both patent-wise and designer-wise. So when they made this revision in 1936, it was Loomis and Harrison that were all over it. So there's 3 patents for this rifle. They're actually printed on the rifle, like actually written on there. So it's not like you really got to sit there and do any research. These 3 patent numbers are literally written right across the barrel. And also, the Fieldmaster script on it. This one kind of warned, where I got this thing. We'll get to that a little later. We'll talk about, this was really, for me, just going to be like a footnote. I'm just going to do a quick video on it and just be like, hey, I got this. It's kind of interesting. Mainly, it was, the reason for that is mainly because it was just what they call a gunsmith special. It was like on the rack of rifles that don't work. The reason why I grabbed it, and I think it was $40, $50. Maybe it was even less than that. I don't even remember. It was a long time ago. I had to go way back in my timeline of my rifles to even find this thing. When I wanted to do the video, I was surprised how far back I had to go. And the reason why I bought it is just because looking at it, it just looked so complete. But I did take it to the range. Show you some range footage later. I did take it to the range, and it fired. Like if I put a cartridge directly in, it would fire, and it would cycle a couple here and there, but it was hanging up. You could see why somebody would have said it's a gunsmith special and it doesn't work, but it was functional. Usually in that rack, you literally have rifles with like just parts missing, like, big parts missing. This one looked so complete. I was like, listen, maybe I can get this thing going, but I just never did. I never did get it going. But there's a footnote to this story. So doing the video on it, actually pulling it out and doing some research, I just started to rekindle my interest in getting it going. And we'll have some information on that later. But let's just get back to these patents for now. I like to cover this because it's this thing's lineage. It's just so interesting. So those 3 patents that I just showed you that are actually printed on the barrel, right? Here are the 3 patents. I didn't pull these up. I don't know if I'm actually going to have them on the screen this time. I did not save them as the PDF screenshots. I just have the paper ones. But so yeah, we'll get a little intimate today, and we'll look together. So CC Loomis, these are the patents that are actually on it. Okay, like actually printed on it. And I have another one. Wait, hold on. Let me just make sure I have that over here. Is that over here? Where is that one? Yes. Okay. So this is a cool one. So now, the ones that I had actually from printing on it were this one, just this firearm. And reading through it, it's interesting. They relate to the Model 12. So with these patents, there's an interesting thing that since I've been looking through them, I've seen that you can actually write a patent, and you could patent something that works with something else. So you could say, refer to this patent, and you bring up the patent and you say, now, for this patent, I'm patenting something that connects to it, or something like that. You're allowed to do that, you know what I mean? So you can actually refer to a patent to talk about what your patent on that patent actually is. This looks a little bit more like the Model 14, but I guess it's the pump action. It's all just incorporated. But if you really want to get into Pedersenville, just get in here. This one has just a huge amount of text. Got about halfway through this one. It's like, he was very into. The reason why Browning had such respect for Pedersen is because a lot of people borrowed from Browning's designs, and a lot of people had to come up with other ideas to go around Browning's patents. You know what I mean? Pedersen was one of the few guys that it wasn't like he was desperately trying to design something that didn't infringe, which you see a lot from the other designers. Pedersen was just doing his own thing, but he was so far outside the box. He was so in his own. He so had his own thing going on that it just didn't interfere with Browning's patents, just because they were his own thing, So Loomis here, he's kind of following in Pedersen's footsteps, you know what I mean? And Garrison, here's Garrison here. Garrison designed the action lock. So when you look through these, when you look through Pedersen's patents, I'm going to pull those up in a second. When you look through Pedersen's patents working their way into Loomis's redesigns here, you see a lot of these all have to do with the action lock. Oh, here's what I'm talking about. See, I highlighted this. See how it says, and he gives a whole thing about what this is all about, and then he writes, an example of this is found in the so-called number 12 Remington rifle made according to patents. And then it lists, this is really cool. Now we have 3 patents right here that are listing the original patents that these guys were going to make these, copying off of. I shouldn't say copying off of, but revising to revise the action for the 121. And those patents, and there's another one here. We can't forget this one. This one I'm going to pull up a little bit later. Here's another one. And as I wrote on here, from forum diagram. I'm going to leave that right here because that's going to be important. This is what helped me to find out what's actually wrong with this thing. These are the original Pedersen patents. And like I was mentioning before, you start looking through these, and you see the how completely outside the box Pedersen was with his designs. Mostly the reason why they didn't infringe on Browning's. And I think this one is the closest to what's going on with this rifle. Yep. This one, the 908-83 is probably the main one. So now, when did these guys work together? Because, you know, these guys were contemporaries. Isn't that what it's called when they're working around the same time? So Browning worked with Pedersen. So Browning had Browning had some designs knocking around with Remington. Obviously, the Remington Model 11 shotgun came to Remington for Browning's A5 right around the time when Pedersen was coming out with this guy. And Browning himself had the Model 24 after that, and he worked with Pedersen on some of this stuff, and with C.C. Loomis was even in on, like I said, he was even in on the design for the original Model 12. It was the Model 17 shotgun that was John Browning and Pedersen together. I think that those are around. I think you could get one of those. I'm going to research it. If they are available, I want to see if I could get one of those. I want one of those. So their Model 17, that's a 20 gauge shotgun. Very interesting story. These were eventually redesigned as the Remington Model 31, which C.C. Loomis had a huge hand in, which also was the Browning BPS, and eventually, after like patents ran out and Ithaca finally had their ability to jump on it, the Ithaca Model 37, which is come on, can you think of a more iconic or popular shotgun? The Ithaca Model 37 actually began its life way back as a 20 gauge shotgun invented and designed by John Browning and Pedersen together. That's why I just have to have one of those. So Loomis, C.C. Loomis, he was in on the on the Model 31 with Pedersen. Those were made from 31 to 49. You know, Pedersen, he died in 1951. So you can figure, you know, you'd think he died much earlier than that, but no, 51, he was around for all this stuff, all the redesigns of his designs, even he was around. You know, that's amazing, right? So what should I cover this now? You know what? I'll cover this now because I'm going to forget later. So you remember Crittenden? We had also talked about Crittenden, right? So he was just in there wasn't he in there on the Model 58, or I don't remember. Back in the last couple of videos, we were mentioning him. So the Model 121 Fieldmaster was eventually redesigned itself and became the Model 572. And those are made from, did I write that down anywhere? Those are made from 1954 to, I guess, till the present. I'm sorry, this is a 78. They were made from 1954 to the present. And I think they still make like a BDL model of it or something like that. I'm not even sure. They did, at least a few years ago, they were still making it. But that's what that became the 572. Got a video of this up there. And yeah, and these are called the Fieldmaster. So that's what they eventually became. And they were redesigned. I mean, you could see that's the John Vasakopoulos, or better known as John Vassos, designed shape. You could see right there. That looks like an 870, right? Well, now I'm mentioning it after I took it away. So you see how it looks, it has that look with the two pins and the, looks like an 870 with the release right here. So it's that John Vassos design, that industrial designer that came in and redesigned all of Remington's designs to look sleek like that. Kicked in on this model as well. And here is Crittenden's patent for it. John Vasakopoulos. And yeah, he really, this was a huge change. Like the whole fire control changed or whatever. But this is where, Crittenden, the new, this ushers in the new, see, this is filed in 1951, which is the year Pedersen died. So like this is the new wave coming in after that, So when you're looking at these, right, to buy, you're basically going to see there's a whole bunch of versions of the original Model 12. It's an A, a B. The B is like a gallery gun, small. But then there's one. So let's see, these books really help out. Walnut and Steel. These are these Bill Ward books, right? Here's the original Walnut and Steel. And then there's a Walnut and Steel 2. These are excellent books if you want to research 22s in general, of course, but they're really good books. But they have really good write-ups on these guys. So what was it again? Where was I? Oh, the Model 12. So the Model 12, they had a few different versions of it. Now this is a 12C, which is full-length barrel, full-length stock. This is regular full-sized rifles. I guess it was called the Target version of it. There was a 12. I just looked at it. I forgot what it was. A 12A. Now the 12A, it came out, I guess, a few years down the line. It wasn't right away in 1909. When was it? Let's see if I see it here in the book. It's not jumping right out at me, but the 12A was a cheaper version of it. So it had a shorter barrel. It didn't have this octagonal heavy barrel. It had a round barrel that was lighter. It didn't have this type of stock. It had a straight stock. It was kind of like a cheapened version of it, a version where they just knocked the edge off. It was probably cheaper price and smaller, maybe made for, like youngster. So you could easily get those confused with these because they never made a 121 with an octagonal barrel. So when you see the round barrel on here and it looks a little bit different, it can be easy to confuse those two. And if you're looking for specifically an older one or a newer one, that can kind of mess you up. So just look at them really carefully, get to know them from pictures at exactly what you're looking at if you're looking for a specific thing. You know what I mean? And these 121s, they barely have any parts that can switch back and forth with the 12s, believe it or not. Even though the design is the same, there's a lot of internals that are different. All right, so let me get all these patents out of here. But here's the one. I needed one. One had to stay with me. All right, here it is. So, oh, and if you look online, you'll find this. There's actually a Model 121, the instruction book for it that originally came. They have online that you could download. And the pages on it are kind of whacked out. Like when you print it out, the pages come out all upside down and weird. Like you try to make it like a booklet, but it doesn't fold up that way. At least maybe I was doing something wrong. But you could, if you wanted to, you could print two of them and then kind of paste them together or cut it up and turn it into a booklet if you wanted to do it. But it's kind of nice that it has, the exploded diagram and it kind of has, like what the basic instructions for it were, which is pretty cool. And so let's get into the story of what happened when I started researching this thing. So here's what happens to it what's wrong with it. So when I would go to cycle it, let's get out our realistic snap caps here. Let's get a few of these in our hand. These things, you can check them out on realisticsnapcaps.com. Here on the channel, we love these things. It is a way to do function testing using completely inert rounds. When you're dealing with 22 rimfire, especially when you're having issues with feeding and when you might have to like chop around out of the action with a screwdriver or something, you do not want to have live rounds in there messing around. A lot of these 22s, you got to watch it when you have issues. The firing pin, like with this gun, the ejector is the firing pin. Okay, so it has an extractor here to grab the round and pull the rim, pull it out, the case out by the rim. But you see in here, there's no ejector. You see how the firing pin is extended? It's the firing pin that's going to act as the ejector. And I mean, you could imagine where that problem could come in. You know, if you're having an issue with a round and you're cycling it like crazy and beating it up trying to get a round out of here, it's real easy for it to just go off when you close the action or with the action open. I mean, who knows? If it's functioning properly, you know, you're probably not going to have a problem. But if it's not functioning properly, that's when you could have an issue. If you're not at the range, and especially if you're doing function testing, you definitely want to be using inert rounds with any caliber. I mean, that's just our policy here at the Milsurp Garage, and it's my suggestion is you follow it too. If you want to get these types of snap caps, these are really good because they're realistic, hence the realistic snap caps. If you go to their website, you use a coupon code Milsurp Garage, one word, no space in between, Milsurp Garage, you'll get 10% off your order. We've had that for years. These guys are friends of ours, and I really recommend them just because I want you guys using these things. I just don't want anybody messing around with anything that could detonate. Sometimes even, you know what people said? They said like, oh, there's 22s. They're always laying around, like ones that don't go off. Like I use CCI stuff, so it's good ammo. But there's people that use crappy 22, and if they pull the trigger and it doesn't go off, they throw it on the side and they say, well, I'll use it for function testing. Once again, cannot do that with 22. It's a live round, even though the primer might not have been in that spot on the rim. You could just rotate it around a little bit and pull the trigger and have the firing pin hit a little bit on the other side, or even just a fraction of an inch away from that spot, and could hit primer material if it wasn't properly spun into the rim. I mean, anything could happen. Just live ammo, trust me. So what was going on with this guy? Let's see. I only put 5 in there. It might not actually do whatever the problem was. So let's see if it feeds. So it's interesting how the lifter brings it up, right? Oh, that one went right in. That was nice. Now again, with these, you can pull the trigger on them, but you're going to dent the the rim. Obviously, they're just like regular rims, and you're going to dent them. So if you wanted to do pulling the trigger to see if your firing pin's hitting the rim, that's fine. I mean, I know it is because I know it fires. I don't need to put dents into these things, but these things aren't cheap enough where if you really had to like do that type of testing to get a rifle going, it wouldn't be so bad. But I use them almost exclusively just for this type of function testing, just to see mechanically how the gun is working. You see, that's the firing pin that actually pops that out like that, and it is picking up another one that worked just fine. And out. Again, when you do it slow, you're gonna have it's gonna act a little weird, but you could really keep an eye on what's going on. course, it's making a jerk out of me now because it's look, see, you're getting this out of a gunsmith special parts bin. You're thinking that you did really good. I mean, there we go. That was excellent. Let's put 10 in here. You know what's nice about these? It has this little push button here. This is nice. This is like one of those nice little details on a rifle like this. Is something that they didn't lose when they went from the 12 to the 121, which was nice. That feature stayed, and it's pretty cool that it's not just a twist. You know what I mean? The twist ones, they come off once in a while, but this has that positive locate. It's like a button that literally clicks over into a recess. It's not going to accidentally pop off. So now we'll go with 10 in here and see what happens. And I could not solve this problem, mainly because I didn't really study the gun and look at the patents and look at the design and really know 100% about what was going on with this rifle. Now, right away, I see that we have an issue, and it is doing the problem. You see right here? I see the nose of a cartridge right there. There's no way the action is going to move. That's it. It's locked. It's not going to move because we have the head of a cartridge poking out right there. And then at the range, what I would do is carefully see if I can find something. I'd have something like this, let's say. And I'd get in here, and I would try to just push that down. Well, first, I'm gonna relax the magazine tube to relax the pressure on that round, and try to get it out of there and push it back down. It would be really tough, and of course it's made out of lead, so you'd be mushing it all up, and I'm prying in there to try, and eventually I could pop it down and be back into action again. This one is going to be stubborn and it's going to stick there. This was the problem. I have to take the whole rifle down. So I'm not even going to mess with it. I'm going to leave it there, but that was my problem. And it seemed like, I was missing a part, but I wasn't. Oh, there, I think it came out of there. Yeah, there it goes. I think it slid out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, see, I got all 10. So when I tilted it like that, it did slide out. But occasionally it would get stuck in there so hard that I couldn't even I couldn't even get it out without taking the whole rifle down. So like I was saying, it seemed like a part was missing. But then when I would take it apart and look, I didn't really see anything. And that's kind of like how it sat. Doing research for this video, I was poking around, I was looking at a bunch of stuff. Somebody was talking about diagrams of stuff and everything, and I started to look, and I said, you know what, let me do a search here. I'm going to do a search. I did a Google search. Don't ever be afraid of doing a Google search for a big, long sentence of something that you're looking for. Google is very smart. It can pick keywords out of an entire 15-word sentence with a question mark at the end and narrow it down to what you're looking for. You used to have to give Google like 3 words. You know what I mean? That was it, but not anymore. So I literally put in Remington Model 121 round pops up between magazine tube and barrel. I might have put in something like that into a Google search. And up pops the forums. And let me tell you, these forums, I love forum people. There's a lot of people that talk about, like the toxicity on forums and just the internet in general. But like, you just gotta be thick-skinned, because the the amount of knowledge, the amount of information you can get from the internet makes it so much so worth it. You know, even on chat forums where you'll see, the thing about it is you're going to see the worst of people and the best of people, you know, like, but all in, like, you know, just comments on a chat forum. You're going to see all of that. So you have to be able to have a thick skin. And on there, on this one chat forum, a guy was talking about issues he was having with his let me see where I wrote this down somewhere. All right, where did I write it? Cartridge container. And I was like, cartridge container? What kind of nomenclature name is that? Cartridge container. Here we go. I start poking around, doing some research. This thing could be called anything from a cartridge container to a cartridge retainer, or just a retainer. And I was like, cartridge retainer. That sounds like it could be missing from my gun, because I am certainly not having my cartridge properly retained. That is absolutely what's going on. I take a look in my Encyclopedia of Modern Firearms by Brownells, the Brownells Bible, and I find this part right here. The reason why it was getting by me in these exploded diagrams is because it's tiny, and you know, they have it where it's like as big as half the stock. You know, I'm thinking it's a big, huge part somewhere in there. Whatever. It's just not jumping right out at me as something small that could be missing, because these parts aren't to scale. So 257, Brownells is calling it, or this, I think this is from Remington's actual component parts. We could tell here, wait, hold on. We could tell right here because we have it. Yeah, this looks identical to that. 257. Where's that? What do they call it? Let's see if they call it the same thing. Where's the parts list? Here's the parts. These are the parts. It's the same parts list. Retainer, short, long, and long rifle. So you want to watch, if you ever, if you're like, you know, eureka, you just solved my problem, because I have that same problem. Just be careful. There's two different ones now. So when you're dealing with that retainer, if you have a Model 12 like this one, that's before serial number 600,000, that's where there was a changeover. Before 600,000 on the Model 12, it's a smaller, thinner piece. You can see it in here. See it in there? And the Model 12 has this button here too, for when you put it together, that they eliminated from the 121. But you could see that part in there goes across and would retain anything from popping up over here, whereas we don't have anything in there. And that's where it goes. And anything after 600,000, around 600,000 on the Model 12, and all of the 121s are a larger piece, this cartridge container. So I see on this forum, a guy puts up this, and I didn't even have this patent. So here's a CC Loomis patent for firearm. This one is 1/686/332. I didn't even have this one. And this really breaks down the design of this gun, how it all works together, and what's going on. And in this chat forum, these guys really break it down. And this was the one I printed up from Forum Diagram. And I took a look. Now, there's a place called Wisner's that they actually manufacture parts, hard to find parts. Now, the reason why, they'll manufacture stuff like these idiosyncratic parts that break a lot, wear out a lot, you know, like the ones that disappear a lot for some reason or another. They're the parts that everybody needs and they don't make anymore, you know, like that are obsolete, but in demand. And if it's enough in demand, they'll actually manufacture it, if it's easy enough to just make. So since when everyone takes apart these Model 12s, that piece falls out and then they don't know where it goes, and it's so small they just chuck it. They don't think it means anything. There are actually a lot of these guns with this part missing. A lot of these 12s and 121s. So Wisner's makes it. I was going to get it from them, but I just happened to pop onto eBay and I saw a guy was selling one for, I think he was selling it for like 40 bucks. And it had the make an offer thing. Never be afraid to just throw up an offer on that. Sometimes it's like immediately declined because they have it set where if there's like a, you know, like a threshold. But I put in 20 and the guy came back with like, listen, I'll do it for 25, and he's taking care of the shipping. So the way I look at it, I knocked $5 off that just for him to get it to you, let's say, right? And it's cheaper than the Wisner's one, but that's not the only consideration. I figured I'd rather keep it all original old Remington parts if possible. But this one that I got on eBay, man, this thing looks worn and like dirty. It's like, I don't know. I'm hoping that it actually works, but I'd rather have like an old cruddy Remington part in there than some brand new thing that was manufactured. But it's nice to know Wisner's has it. I could always get it there. Well, I shouldn't say always. They do run out of stuff and then stop doing it. But figure I could go there if this one doesn't work, let's say, you know, in a week or two, and I could get it from there. And for now, I'm going to stick with this eBay guy's one. Hasn't come in yet, and so there's obviously going to be a follow-up video. That's why I'm not going to take this thing apart right now, because I am going to take it apart and go in there. Plus, this takedown screw is kind of like, you know, half cross-threaded in here. So when I take this out and I replace this, what's it called again? I keep forgetting what it's called. This cartridge container, when I replace it, or when I add it, if I put the gun together and it works, which it should, I don't think I'll clean it together. I'm not going to mess around with this takedown screw. And what's interesting is this has a bushing here. See the part it threads into, you could hammer that out. And the procedure is you screw this out like halfway, and then you actually hammer on this, and you'll push this bushing out, and you could replace that bushing. I don't know if that's something that's available also. Wisner's also does have the takedown screw, believe it or not. But I don't know if they have this bushing that goes in here. But I could always replace that too. But, you know, it does screw in and hold the gun together for now. But I could just tell it just doesn't. You could see somebody, I didn't do this. Somebody really went to town with like a screwdriver that's too thin. But when we take it apart, I'm going to show you how to, you know, the wide screwdriver, the whole deal. I'll show you guys how we do. Your long time subscribers know what I'm talking about. People that are just tuning in, I'll show you how to not do that. And we'll get to that when we take it apart. So I'm going to take it apart to replace that part, go to the range, test it out. Here, I'll pull up the range footage that I do have of me fumbling with it and messing around while I don't know, what can I do while this range footage is up there? And again, don't go by this range footage. It's not, I don't want you to judge the gun by it. It is missing a part. It came from a gunsmith bin. But the coolest thing is that I wanted to get it and tie up a couple of loose ends like we did the short form video at that other, and short form was that was close to 20 minutes. I wouldn't exactly consider that short form, as most of these videos up on YouTube on these guns are like 4 minutes long. But I just, you know, there's some examples I have laying around that I'll show you them, bring them to the channel, but wouldn't necessarily have. I mean, what am I going to say about this thing? It's like, yeah, we've done the Model 12. This is the 121. It's like a revision, but it doesn't work, and it sits in the corner. And see you next time. It's like that kind of thing, you know. But no, when I really started looking, I'm like, this is tying together all of our patent guys, Crittenden, Crittenden at CC Loomis, And this guy, definitely this Garrison guy, I gotta look into this. Garrison was around, according to the Walnut and Steel book here. This Garrison guy was around back in 1909 when Pedersen first put this thing together. Him and C.C. Loomis did a little redesign, you know what I mean? Not a redesign, they did a little sprucing to help it to the market. This was Pedersen's first mainstream design, this Model 12. Yeah, he went on to do the 14. He did the Remington Model 10 shotgun, the Pedersen device, his own toggle lock rifle, the Model 51. Pedersen, man. Pedersen, the Model 51. We love this thing. This is one of my favorite handguns. This is all Pedersen right here. Not only that, this is in 380. So a few of them were made in 32 caliber. He did a version of this thing in 45 caliber to try to get it into World War One, and it did not make it. U.S. government didn't want to switch everything around. But supposedly they say they kind of liked it better, but they didn't want to. They weren't ready to. It wasn't time. It wasn't cost effective to switch everything at that point. They already had too much invested into the 1911. You know, so here again, this Browning 1911 and Pedersen with that. Even back then, when the 1911 was coming to fruition, there's Browning looking at the Pedersen gun like, you know, Browning was like, that's a pretty cool gun you got there. You know, John Browning definitely respected him. From the stuff that I've read, he really did respect his designs and thought he was great. He gave him respect. So it doesn't work. And the next video, see, we got another series going. It starts off as I'm just going to do a throwaway video to show you a broken gun. But when I really see all these people involved, the patents, I just went down another crazy rabbit hole of looking at these designs and exploded diagrams of this gun to really find out what was missing, and I found the part. I found the part that was missing. You know, it's really hard to find something when it's missing in a gun. That's a tough one. You know, I've taken apart a million of these guns, and it's like if something's broken, if something's out of adjustment, if something's worn out, you know, if something's not fitting, you know, there's interference. There's a million different things that could be going on, and you could overcome it. You could find it. You could fix it. A missing part, like a spring missing, something like that. It's like, how would you know a spring is supposed to be hooked on from one piece to another? You know what I mean? You have to really know how to read these patents. You have to be able to look at something like this and really know what's going on. These older ones are hardly detailed. It's more like, this is more like it. You have to be able to look at this kind of stuff and really be able to identify every little thing that's going on. Here it is right over here. And see that little 77? And you go into the text and you find where they're referencing it. That's what those numbers do. You go in here and it shows you the figure and the number. It'll put a number on what part they're talking about in what figure. And it explains how each of these little things work. If you learn how to get into those patent drawings, that's when you'd be able to actually look at it and see, like, oh, something is missing, or it's turned around the wrong way, it's orientated wrong, something like that. Even that's easier. It's missing is the hard one. When something's not there, how would you know it's supposed to be there? You know what I mean? Obviously there's a round popping up here, so something's wrong. It did kind of look like something was missing, I must admit. And it was really helpful to be able to see that the Model 12 had something in there. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, we're going to be back with the fix-it video slash shooting video where it should be. Mint. I'm predicting this thing is going to work like a champ once that part is replaced. And for 40 bucks plus another 25 for the part, we're not even at, I think I paid 40 for this thing. I gotta look. We're not even at 100 bucks yet. And we have a beautiful 121 John Pedersen CC Loomis revised pump action 22 rifle. Don't say bargains aren't out there. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.